There are a lot of rules of thumb, a lot of actual rules when it comes to personal finances, but those are changing a little bit. Our next guest would argue that a lot of those rules no longer apply. Kelley Keehn is the author of Save Yourself, a new approach to thinking about money and taking control of your financial future. Hello, Kelley.
Hello, Bruce. It's been too long. Always great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
It is great to have you. You begin with an assertion, and the assertion is this is not your parents' financial playbook. So, what's different this time around?
So much is different. It's interesting because, Bruce, soon as you write a book, it's almost out of date. And I remember writing maybe one of my last ones talking about how low inflation was and how people should understand it. By the time it was printed, it was like, please let me, pluck that out of every library and bookstore because we saw what people way above my pay grade said could never happen. And, when I'm talking with young folks, there's that, doomer mentality that they can't do it. They can never have home ownership. Why even try? The world is blowing up. And, we need to understand that it needs to be a different conversation for them. The pensions have gone by the way of the dodo bird. There's so much uncertainty. So this book, it examines a lot. It covers a lot. It doesn't cover what I've covered in the past and actually goes back to the very first book that I wrote over 20 years ago on the psychology of money. And back then, Bruce, it was all anecdotal. Like that, we weren't talking about the psychology behind money. Neuroplasticity was a new thing. Neuroeconomics, behavioral economics. These aren't things we even knew about back then, or they were just in their infancy. So it's really a new book grounded in all of that, all of the science, all the empirical evidence. And at the end of the day, really just a can-do spirit that I know you always give to your listeners and readers as well.
Yeah. And Kelley, you and I share a real value around ensuring that people have a base level of understanding around psychology. Sure, there's lots of stuff to do and there's, things to learn in the realm of knowledge, but the context of how our brains work, how we think and feel about money is so critical. You have a whole section in the book on that. I'm going to ask you to distill it down to one thing. If there was one thing you wanted readers to take away about the psychology of money, what would it be?
Thank you for asking that because I can distill down the entire book and what my message has been the number of years and really what wakes me up every morning and the quote that I live and breathe every single day. And that is, you do not get what you want, you get who you are. So I know it takes a second, right? Yeah. You don't get what you want, you get who you are. And there's a through line to our entire life with this, Bruce. Now, if I were to write a book on health and wellness, that discipline has come quite easily to me. And no one would read that book because my identity with health is very strong. But when it comes to matters of money, and I've shared this story many times with all of my readers and viewers, is that I was raised by a single mom looking after 3 kids. She had no education. She was a waitress to look after us. So as you can imagine, money was incredibly tight. However, I was also raised with very wealthy uncles. I didn't get that money, but I was raised around seeing that confidence, seeing how they spoke about stocks and bonds and real estate and how she cried about worrying about money. And Bruce, that identity followed me and still does live and reside within me. And, in my early 20s, I was a poor kid from Edmonton, and I really had to fight that money story. How are you going to negotiate? How are you going to advocate for yourself? How are you going to grow your business if your identity is a poor kid? So you don't get rid of your identity, but by, seeing it, calling it, naming it, and then being able to manage it, it's a game changer. Because if I, didn't have the identity of somebody that cared about their health, you're not going to do the things as you mentioned, right?
Well, and I want to ask you a supplementary question on this, because that quote, in the wrong hands, could be really disempowering to people. And what I want to say about that is so many people carry a level of debt they can't manage, and they believe that's who they are. They are a failure because of insert, circumstance here. I know that's not what you're saying, but help delineate what that quote means versus the trap that people fall into where they feel like they are their failure with money.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is a great distinction. You would know as the CEO of Credit Canada, you're dealing with those identities. And I also had that identity, Bruce, of someone who was in a lot of debt early on, made a lot of mistakes, tried to keep up with my wealthy clients when I couldn't afford to. But until you shift it and start to play with the possibility that you deserve wealth, the possibility that you deserve to be debt free, you're not going to make the choices that create lasting change. We can tell people to save, we can tell them to not drink their latte, we can tell them to do all of these things. Now, we also know the neuroscience behind it, that our brain is actually tripping us up. So I want to give people a lot of permission in this book to realize that it's not just them. They're not failing because of poor willpower, because of poor planning. Sometimes it is just life circumstances. But a lot of times it's our brain tripping us up. But back to identity, if we don't get that we have to fundamentally change who we are. I mean, my first two books, I looked at lottery winners. And why is it that, we know the stats, not only do most lottery winners lose everything within a few years, but they're worse off financially. How is that possible? When all of us say when we're in money difficulties, if you just gave me more money,
right,
I'd be okay.
Right.
And unfortunately, that doesn't mean that's you listening to this, but unfortunately, the average person does not do better with more money because the self-made millionaire took a very long time to earn it, to make it, for their identity to catch up to their life. So I just want people to really look at that and that it's not just the numbers, it's about how you feel and think about money.
You're also, so a lot of the psychological aspects, there's been research over the course of decades. The book also brings topics that are relevant in this precise moment. And the most obvious one, of course, is artificial intelligence. You included a bonus chapter here, and you call it Rewrite Your Money Story with AI. Like you're actually clickety going into ChatGPT. Tell us about this exercise and what you hope people could gain from doing it for themselves.
Yes. Now we need to be careful with AI. It's a tool like anything else, right? A scalpel in a surgeon's hands can do wonderful things. In a criminal's hands can do horrible things. So we know that there's good and bad to AI. Now, this does not replace professionals, be it a professional therapist helping you through your money issues, a nonprofit credit counselor, or financial planner. These folks will always be relevant, but you may not be able to afford that. You may not even know where to start. And we also know from behavioral economics that we're a lot more honest with a computer screen than we are with humans. Even when it comes to telling your doctor how many glasses of wine you might have per week, we tend to fib with humans. So why not start your story with AI? Now, it can be your personal journey. I have had a lot of therapy sessions with my financial coach, with my actual therapist, and talking with AI about what are those narratives that you can change? What are those, maybe mirror statements that you can create? Now, this might sound airy-fairy, but these are the small, we all have voices inside of our head that are telling us what we can or cannot do. Now, why not change the narrative? Sometimes we can't see outside of that. So I've used AI for that. You can also use AI just for basic understanding. What is an RSP? Yeah. What's a TFSA? How do I best pay off my debt? Again, this does not replace a professional, but it's a great place to start. And maybe before you go and see your professional, to feel that you have a solid footing.
Yeah, it's great. A plug for Credit Canada's AI agent. We have a full credit counseling agent called Mariposa.
Amazing!
All of the things that are relevant to people's debt and their credit journey.
I will be checking out Mariposa.
Yeah, you got to check out Mariposa. It's amazing. One last question is: you talk about a digital CFO. So, in the world of AI, what does that phrase mean, and how does a average Canadian go about creating a digital CFO?
Well, it's still in its infancy because AI is a large learning model, a language model. It's not as great with numbers, but it can help you a lot. So, what is your digital CFO? Number one, using AI to help you budget, help you have a non-judgmental conversation about where your money is going, and then also using tools like your online calendar to like put everything in your financial life there for you, reminders, cheering you on, all of the goals that you have. We do this at New Year's, and then we just let it all fall apart and we don't have anyone checking up on us. So why not put it in your calendar just like you would your workout, just like you would scheduling something with your nutritionist if you were able to afford to do that. Get it in your calendar. Don't keep it in your brain. Let your tech help you be financially successful.
Amazing. Kelley, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your book. And thank you for your relentless pursuit of financial well-being for Canadians that, I don't know, dates back decades now. You're one of the GOATs, and really appreciate that you made the effort to talk to us today.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Bruce, and all you do for your listeners and Canadians across the country, helping empower them with their debt at a time that's so difficult. So I applaud you and bravo for all of your financial wellness and literacy efforts as well.
Thank you, Kelley. Kelley Keehn, author of Save Yourself, a new approach to thinking about your money and taking control of your financial future.